how to prepare your heart to seek God. Now, this is number 3 of a teaching I've been on in this series, 3-Dimension Living, talking about the spirit, the soul, and the body. That when we're born again, we get a new spirit. You and I were born, the Bible says, that we're created in the image of God. God created us a spirit, and then you were born whenever you were born. The Bible says in Jeremiah that God knew Jeremiah before he was in his mother's womb. He knew him. The word knew indicates that there was a relationship going on. You and I had an intimate relationship with God in spirit form. The biggest hindrance on earth is distraction. Not the devil. Come to an awakening of who we really are. And the only thing that keeps us from that is distraction, and that's what the enemy uses. He doesn't use a demon, he uses distraction. He uses life. He uses everyday living, and he brings it at us 1,000 miles per hour, so we don't have time to do anything but get up, wash ourselves, go to work, come home, have a little time with the family, eat because retired, watch some TV, go to bed, and you do that for 40 and 50 years. The second thing that hardens our heart, and that is preoccupation with anything other than God. Your kids can keep you so preoccupied that your heart hardens to God. Your job, trying to get your retirement, trying to keep your body in order. A man, a woman can keep you so preoccupied. Your hobbies, your sports, your business. These things can keep you so preoccupied with life that you don't have time for God. And we found out last week that whatever you consider, meaning give focus to, whatever you pay attention to, you have a sensitive heart. Your heart becomes sensitive to who you give your attention to. God gave us our 5 senses so that we can focus in on Him, so we can become sensitive to Him and harden to the world's cares and the world's stress. But we flip the coin, we do just the opposite. As strong as His Word is, it cannot work successfully if our heart is hardened. Because His Word that's in our spirit has to come through our mind. That's where our soul is. And our soul, if it doesn't get it, if our mind doesn't get the Word, it can never affect our physical body. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. We have to first start thinking what's going on in here. And if I think it here long enough, it eventually will affect this part of my life. It cannot jump from my spirit to affect my body. It has to come from my spirit, Romans chapter 12, verse 2, into my mind, where my mind is renewed, transformed. And once it's in my mind tells my body how to act. So when I take this Bible that you hear, faith comes by hearing, the faith coming to this part, because this part already has faith. So as you hear this word, faith coming here from the outside, and now the Bible that I'm getting in my mind is connected with the Bible that's in my spirit, and this is what brings that aha moment. This is what brings that revelation. This is when transformation takes place. This is when you know I'm transformed, I'm changed, I'm healed, I'm delivered. When a heart is hardened, the Word of God cannot work for you. You know, you say, well, why is that so important, Pastor? Okay, if the doctor ever tells you he can't do anything, or you ever get in a situation where your money can't get you out of something or help you, or you ever facing something bigger than you, and there's a lot of stuff in life bigger than us. Okay, if your 5 senses can't pull you out, you're going to need the Word of God. It's your only help. Matthew chapter 17, verse 14 through 21. Let's look at this story. It says, and when they were come to the multitudes, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and sore vexed, for oft times he falleth into the fire and oft times into the water. And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. And then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him. And the child was cured from that very hour. Then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could we not cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove. And nothing shall be impossible unto you. Howbeit, this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. Now this boy had something like seizures. I think we call it epilepsy or something. Epilepsy. And so that's what we would call it. Medicine wasn't as advanced back then, and quite frankly, anything that happened, they did contribute this, even though we have names for it. Still, the source is demonic. It's not God. And that's the thing we have to understand. We put names and titles and stuff, but still, you have to consider, where does it come from? And Jesus himself said it came from the devil. Now this is important because this man brought his son to the disciples, and they couldn't get his boy free. And Jesus cast his demon out, and later the disciples came to him and they asked him some questions. How come we couldn't do this? So Jesus did what the disciples couldn't do, and later he taught them a lesson about the hardness of their heart. He was telling them why they couldn't do this in a later time in their ministry. And if we read what Jesus had to say about it, Jesus was pretty upset over the disciples' inability to deliver this boy from the devil, from these demons, and from this sickness. He was upset with them. He wanted to know, how come you couldn't cast this demon out? Why come you couldn't get this boy free? He was upset with them. And I'm going to tell you, I think Jesus, just like he wasn't pleased with them, I don't think he's pleased with the church today. I don't think we've impressed him. I think we've misrepresented him as well. I think he wants us to get people free just like he wanted them to get people free. And I think the church, quite frankly, we should be operating at a whole another level. When I say the church, I mean this one and all churches in general, where there's constant healings, constant victories, constant prosperities. It should just be the norm in a church. I think when a person comes to a city, the first thing they should look for, I think, is a local church. I don't think they should look for where the hospital is first, or the bank, or a psychiatrist. I think the first thing they should look for is a church. I don't think people should move because a job transferred them. I think they should move because a church is there is going to feed their spirit. I think we got it backwards. I think all of that is distraction to fool people into what's really right and what's not. One of the things Jesus did when he was here, he represented God real good. And I think if Jesus was here in a physical body, he would still represent God good. But he's not here in a physical body. He's here in your body, and he wants you to represent God good. And the same Christ that was in Jesus from Nazareth is in you. That same Christ is in you. That's what the Bible says, Colossians 1:27. Because a lot of us have that same question. Why couldn't we cast out the cancer? Why couldn't we cast out the tumor? Why couldn't we cast out the demon that destroyed our marriage? Why couldn't we cast out the demon that attacked our kids and got them addicted to drugs? Why couldn't we cast out the demon that destroyed our business? Why couldn't we cast out the demon that destroyed our finances? We all have the same question. And before you criticize the disciples, let me tell you, these are not disciples who are just going out there trying to cast a demon out for the first time or get somebody healed for the first time. According to scriptures in Matthew chapter 10 verse 1, the Bible says, and when he called unto himself 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits and to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of diseases. Galatians 5:22 says the fruit of the Spirit, part of the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, all that. But part of the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22, is faith. He didn't say because you didn't have faith. He didn't say because your faith is little. He said you didn't cast him out or get this guy free. He said because of your unbelief. Now that is huge. You can have faith, but unbelief can still be present. And if the unbelief is stronger, or if you've had the unbelief longer than the faith, then that unbelief, you can floor the faith, but the unbelief is going to stop the faith. I want you to hear me. Here's why it's important to make sure your heart not hardens and make sure you get the word in you, because at some point in your life, if you're believing for something and it takes too long to come, you start thinking you're running out of options, and that further drives the roots of unbelief in your heart. First he's saying, I have faith, but at the same time, help my unbelief. He's telling us faith is different from unbelief, and Jesus didn't question his theology. Jesus didn't say, oh, you got it all wrong, man. If you have faith, there's no such thing as unbelief in there. He left it alone. And Jesus right away called the boy over there, commanded the demon to leave, and set the boy free. Every Christian has the faith of Jesus. The faith you have is in Galatians 22:5. It's in your spirit. We all have that faith that comes in us. That's not even our faith. That's the God kind of faith. deal with. Three types, all right? Right on yours. Number one is the unbelief that comes from lack of knowledge. This is the unbelief of ignorance. In Mark chapter 6, where Jesus was trying to get the people healed and he couldn't do miracles there because of their unbelief, the Bible says he went out teaching. So what stops unbelief is teaching. What stops this lack of knowledge is teaching. So sometimes before you pray for people, it's better for them to come and sit and just get taught. The second type of unbelief is the unbelief we're talking. The second type of unbelief is unbelief from wrong knowledge. But this is worse than the lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge is because you don't know. Unbelief from wrong knowledge, man, is terrible because you can't get the real knowledge until you unlearn the old knowledge. This is the big one, and this is number 3, and it's the unbelief of natural believing. This is the one the enemy uses more than anything. The unbelief of natural believing. This natural believing is the most dangerous because there's nothing wrong with it. It's not wrong. It's just believing from seeing natural things through your 5 senses. And it's everything's right about what you see, but it's just natural. And at some point, you're going to face something that your natural believing can't get you out of, and you're going to need to shift to your faith. If you're bringing more things in through your 5 senses, then you're going to have more belief for the 5 senses. So if the doctor says cancer, if you hear more about cancers, man, if you get cancer, that's a big one. Then that probably will take you out. But if you hear it's cancer, but at the same time you've been hearing more of, it doesn't matter what it is, with his stripes you are healed. If that is in your system greater than the natural voices, what your 5 senses picks up, then it doesn't matter what you hear, you're not going to consider it because your heart would be hardened to that. The only difference between Abraham's faith and our faith, where he considered not his body, was he didn't have the distractions we have. He couldn't plump himself in front of a TV for 8 hours and let unbelief fill his heart. But close with this, whatever comes through the 5 senses determines what you believe. And that's the key. That's how it works. Now what I'm going to do, we don't have time now, we're going to do this next week. Now I want to talk about, how to get rid of the lack of the wrong believing, the lack of believing. How do you get rid of natural believing? Jesus said, by prayer and fasting. He says there's a certain kind, he wasn't talking about the demon, he was talking about this kind of unbelief. So there's a certain kind of unbelief that is so embedded in us